Hello, what's going on, guys? GZTV. What's in my nose? We're back with another video, and in this video, we will be talking about the 2022 film Smile. I know I'm very late on this one. I'm probably over 5 months late on this movie, but I saw it on Amazon Prime. I have it with my Paramount Plus, so I figured I had to check this out. It came out the 22nd at Fantastic Fest, and then the rest of the world got to see it on the 30th of September. So, yeah, a lot of people were talking about it. I mean, this is one of the best marketed films I have ever seen. I mean, the World Series thing. Yeah, the people going to the World Series smiling, the trailers, all of the promo. I think it was great, and I think the movie lived up to the promo. I think this was a good movie. I don't know what you guys think of this movie, but I like it. So let's get into the plot. Excuse me. And the critical reception. So, at a psychiatric ward, therapist Dr. Rose Cotter meets with Laura Weaver, a graduate student who witnessed her art history professor die by suicide several days earlier. So, this movie is very dark, of course. It's a horror movie. It's like a psychological hallucination horror movie, and obviously that's like a common trope in horror movies. But I think this movie does it right. And I mean, if you want me to remind this, or if this movie reminds me of something, the premise reminds me of It Follows, and some of like the scenes and stuff remind me of Hereditary. So if you like both of those movies, I think you'll like. I mean, it doesn't do it as well as Hereditary, but I think Hereditary and It Follows are two movies that I would. If you like this movie and you haven't seen those two movies, you could watch those movies. Because Hereditary kind of deals with grief and trauma the same way that this film deals with it, almost. Laura claims that an entity taking the form of smiling people has been terrorizing her and has told her that she is going to die. Now, I think this film could become I think this could become a franchise personally, especially with how it ended, and we'll get to how it ended. But I think especially with like the whole smiling people thing. Is that Julia Benz? Sorry, on Roku TV, I'm getting distracted. Let me see. What was I talking about? I think this could become like a franchise because we don't know the origin of the Smile people. We don't even know what they look like hardly. Rose Cotter saw the visions of this girl smiling. We'll get to that. We're not even to where she's cursed yet, but we don't know what like it completely looks like. Like this girl was in a different world, you know. Soon thereafter, Laura stumbles to the floor and begins screaming like she starts having a mental breakdown, like the monsters are starting to get to her, this evil entity. When really it's not. Like we know throughout the film that this isn't an evil entity. It's just, I mean, it's pretty much just your mind not getting over a loss you experienced firsthand. Like she experienced someone committing suicide right in front of her. That's very traumatizing, of course. Yeah. After Rose calls for help, she sees Laura standing up and smiling. I think they've showed this in the trailer. With a shard of a broken vase, Laura kills herself by slitting her throat in the shape of a smiley face. Rose later sees her manic patient Carl smiling and shouting that she is going to die. There is some I mean, like this doesn't actually happen. Carl isn't actually saying these things. This is just the first moment of the movie. This is a very minor situation of Rose starting to see things, and the trauma demon, if you want to call him that, the mimic entity or whatever, getting to her. I think that's what they call it. The mimic entity. That sounds about right. Let me change this real quick. Yeah. Rose calls for nurses to restrain him, only to see he was asleep the whole time. And yeah, she's just seeing things. Concerned for Rose's mental well-being, her supervisor, Dr. Morgan Desai, gives her a week off. And that's kind of like the end of the first chapter of the movie. She's on a week off, and that's probably not good for her. She should probably be at work because when she's alone, it doesn't go well for her. In the following days, the hallucinations continue, making Rose seem unhinged and dangerous to people around her. They see these manic episodes and these hallucinations start to unfold, and obviously they're getting very concerned about her. She visits her former therapist, Dr. Madeline Northcott, who suggests that her problems stem from her abusive and mentally ill mother, whose death from an overdose she witnessed as a child. So she's probably, this whole curse that we know is going on, she's probably experienced it twice now in her life. And she's probably experiencing this curse worse than anyone else, because she's probably been seeing things her whole life. Really, I mean, the opening sequence showed her, this little girl, standing in front of her overdosed mom, who's like on the bed, like dead, and yeah, obviously she's been probably having nightmares, probably hasn't been the most mentally stable person, and I'm sure working at this facility, is her helping people, has made her feel better about it. At her nephew's birthday party, Rose's gift had been replaced by her dead cat, horrifying the children, so she pretty much subliminally, without even noticing, killed her cat Mustache, put it in this box instead of the locomotive that she was supposed to buy him, and gives it to him for his birthday. So yeah, this is where people decide, okay, Rose is insane. We need to maybe try to help her, get her some help, She sees a party guest smiling at her and falls onto a glass table, ending the party in chaos. She cuts all of her arms on this table. She begins to suspect she has fallen victim to a curse. I would say that's a pretty good diagnosis there. Upon learning that Laura's professor was grinning at her before his death, Rose visits his widow, Victoria, and learns that he had witnessed a suicide shortly before his own. So it keeps going. It goes back and back and back. Rose asks her ex-boyfriend Joel, a police detective, to go through police records and to see, and every person that, go back to this Angela girl that was connected to the professor, and then see if she saw a suicide, and then go to that person, see if they saw a suicide. And yeah, they find several cases where someone witnessed a suicide, then a few days later died by suicide in front of someone else who continued the pattern. And this couldn't really happen in real life, I don't think, but it's interesting to think about. Maybe it kind of exaggerates it. Maybe it kind of puts an emphasis on mental illness, because mental illness is a very important thing, and this movie kind of has the social commentary on it. If you witness something as traumatic as someone killing themselves, you might want to. You're probably thinking about doing the same to yourself. Let's be honest, especially if it's a loved one. Now, these people witnessed random people do it. Rose's hallucinations intensify. Joel discovers that all the witnesses died within a week of seeing the previous suicide, so she pretty much has a week to live. The exception was Robert Talley, who instead murdered someone else. So her choice is to either kill herself or go to jail, and I don't think she wants to go to jail. I really don't, let's be honest. So yeah, they decide they need to go see this guy. They need to go see how he did it, who he did it to. I'm sure he had a witness. Someone watched someone else get murdered. So yeah, they probably got the curse, and he got it lifted off of him. And he was able to still live. That's the important thing. But it's still not a good thing to do. I guess that's pretty much the main idea of the story. Rose is set up to have two ways of dealing with grief: through violence towards others or towards self-harm. So, yeah, we'll have to see. And now we're thinking, is she going to kill someone or is she going to kill herself? That's kind of the whole purpose of us watching the rest of the movie, to see what decision she makes. Yeah. Rose and Joel visit him in jail, where he claims that the entity feeds on trauma, and the only way to escape it is to kill someone else in front of a witness to traumatize them, passing the entity to them. Rose angrily rejects the option and leaves. At first, Robert didn't realize that Rose was actually dealing with the curse right now. That's why she was asking him for advice, and she tells him, he's get the fuck away from me. He's screaming manically, get the hell away from me. I don't want you passing this on to me. I don't want you killing yourself and giving it back to me. Get the hell away from me. And yeah, obviously, has every reason to do that. So she is confronted at home by the entity in Madeline's form, where it gleefully warns her that she is running out of time, which is true. It's probably been a couple of days now. It's probably been 3 or 4 days since she's hit this curse, and she has at max 3 or 4 days until she inevitably kills herself uncontrollably. I mean, she can't control herself. The entity kills herself, or the entity influences her to kill herself without her realizing. The entity already influenced her to subliminally kill her cat, so who knows what this entity has potential, or what their potential is and what their power is. She impulsively drives to her hospital with a knife, planning to murder Carl in front of someone to pass the entity to him. Maybe like a nurse helper, maybe the doctor that's there. Yeah, she's planning on killing herself in front of someone else to pass the trauma entity onto that person. But she decides she can't go through with it. She can't kill someone. It's not morally the right thing to do. Because she has control over killing someone. She doesn't have control over killing herself. So she either controls her own destiny or lets fate take over. Morgan notices her with a knife, but she speeds away, prompting him to alert the police. Like, she's a very dangerous person at this point. Everyone realizes that, and it's time to get the police involved. Rose drives to her abandoned family home, which at this point in the movie, this is where the movie kind of gets iffy. Up to this point, I think the movie was perfect, but when she gets to her home, it kind of falls off a little bit. I would say, like, 4 out of every 5 minutes of the movie was interesting, right? I would give this movie an 8 out of 10, like, honestly. I think this was a good movie, but once she gets to her home, it's kind of like, she's realizing that she cannot pass on the entity if she remains alone. She's just gonna have to kill herself, like, and she's gonna have to have someone there trying to save her. So she's gonna wait for that. She's gonna wait it out. Rose confronts the entity in the form of her mother, and it's revealed that as a child, Rose found her mother as she was dying from a drug overdose, but decided not to get help. So that's kind of like the plot twist in the movie. She could have helped her mother. Obviously, she was like 10 years old. But still, she could have called 911 and helped her mother from dying of an overdose, and she didn't. So that's what's been haunting her whole life, this guilt that as a child she couldn't help her mother. She wasn't capable. The entity attacks Rose, who has a hallucination, and until someone tries to come and save her and she kills herself in front of him, this entity is going to haunt her in this house, like, for the rest of her life. She needs someone to show up. So yeah, soon Joel pulls up, having tracked Rose's phone, and he's able to find her, and this is good for Rose because she can kill herself and pass it on to him and put herself out of her own misery. Which is a very dark thing. I'm talking about it very casually, but it's a very fucked up thing, of course. Like, if you're having mental issues, don't watch this movie. It's not good, okay? The entity rips off its own skin to reveal its true form, a skinless, humanoid creature with multiple sets of malformed jaws nestled within an enormous, smiling mouth. Now, the original entity was creepy enough, and then you get this, like, almost like the fly-like creature, and oh my, it's disgusting. It forces itself inside her body through her mouth. Joel breaks down the front door only to see Rose set herself on fire with a smile on her face. And you can assume she burned herself to death. And Joel is just sitting there in shock because now he's going to experience the curse. And again, like I said, this could definitely be the basis of our sequel. You know, whether it be the origin story for the Smile Monster, and they can show that in the film, whether it be like Joel's experience with the trauma entity, because it's passed on to him. And maybe it can just keep passing on to other people. Maybe it doesn't have to be one character throughout the movie, you know? That'd make the movie more shocking, more messed up, I guess. But, 80%, 183 reviews, 6.6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes, deeply creepy visuals, and a standout Sosie Bacon, who's Kevin Bacon's daughter, further elevates Smile's unsettling exploration of trauma, adding up to the rare feature that satisfyingly expands on a short. I'm not really sure. This movie is based on something, I think. I'll have to talk about it after this review here. It got a 6.8 out of 10 with 32 critics on Metacritic. It's a generally favorable movie for them. People like it. It's got a B- on Cinema Score. It's got a 69% overall positive score 53% recommend on Post Track, B- on IndieWire. You know, its plot has definitely similarities to films like It Follows, The Ring, Final Destination, where there's like this set premise and the curse keeps going on to people, and the audience knows who's going to get hit with what next. They utilize a lot of dramatic irony in movies like this. So yeah, I mean, it's well done. Smile navigates unhealed trauma through a supernatural lens and mischievous juxtaposition. Despite feeling like a shadow of other stories, it delivers a captivating and claustrophobic mental hellscape that will cause one to both grimace and grin. So yeah, I think this movie deals with like spirits and demons, but at the same time, you can see it as being like visions, seeing like hallucinations, and that's not really what spirits are. I think it's just like an entity that she's imagining because she's going through so much grief that she can't handle herself. I think that's what it is really. I mean, it's often a gimmicky. It can sometimes be a corny horror movie with the plot at hand. There's so many jump scares. The sheer pile on borders. I mean, there might be a little too many jump scares in this movie. That might be its weakness. No matter how excessively the legitimate scares pile up, they're startling and convincing. They're effective. Maybe they do it a little too much, but the fact they can do it too much and it be good is like that's a plus for this movie. The editing and music are impressively tuned for maximum impact whenever the slow-burning tension resolves with an abrupt, ugly surprise, all of which makes Smile an efficient ride, if an unusually unrelenting one. 2.5 out of 4 on RogerEbert.com, and paddling out the concept from an 11-minute short into a nearly 2-hour movie, Smile leans too heavily not only on formulaic mystery plotting, but also on horror themes and imagery lifted from popular hits like The Ring and It Follows. Yeah, a lot of people are comparing this to The Ring and It Follows. I've watched It Follows. I've watched, let's see, what else do we... I've watched It Follows, and I've watched Final Destination. I haven't watched The Ring yet, surprisingly. It is one of the most iconic horror movies of all time. Maybe I should watch it sometime. I'm starting to get back into horror again. There are some nice jump scares, and Bacon is charismatic, but it's achingly derivative and kind of dull. That's what people are saying, but I like this movie, no doubt about it. 2 out of 5 on The Times. 2 out of 5 on Common Sense. The image of a creepy, sinister smile, so primal and so chilling that it might have inspired something truly penetrating, but this horror movie is content to fall back on noisy jump scares. But it's thrilling. That's the point of a horror movie. I don't really have much to say about this movie. Apparently, it's based on an 11-minute short that you can find on YouTube. Man, that's kind of cool that they took that and kind of like expanded it. Let me see here. Come on. 2020 short film Laura Hasn't Slept. So that's really cool to take a short, like a 10-minute short film, and turn it into a damn near 2-hour movie. I think that's cool. Maybe that should happen more often. There's plenty of like creepypastas that you could take and make into short films, and obviously they did that with like Slender Man, one of the most iconic horror characters of all time, and he literally came from like a creepypasta. I think he was a creepypasta. It might have been something else, but he was definitely like a horror short before he was who he was. But leave a like, comment, and subscribe. GZTV as always. This video is a little lengthy, but I like this movie. I have a lot of pride in this movie, a lot of passion for this movie. I like it. People are saying it's dull. It reminds them of other movies. I think this movie has elements of its own that I like. I mean, the suspense. Was Rose going to kill someone or herself? You know?